Hey, good morning, everyone from Malibu, California, cultural capital of the world. Just rolled in here out of nonstop action, Acton, where my other shop is. Welcome to episode 3 of the sordid story of the OK junk pile. This thing was made between 1938 and 1944, and in the episodes previous, episode 1 and 2, we looked at what this thing is, and we got the neck off of it. The playlist is up there, and I'll be adding this one onto it. But we are at a point right now where we are going to focus on this area right here and this neck. Now, the frets are actually okay. You saw me, okay, that's right. You saw me put the 12th fret back in after we steamed it, and it went back in fine. I could leave this like this, but we know that at some point in the future, somebody's going to want to refret this, and while the neck is off, I'm going to do that. So we're going to catch a couple details of that. We're also going to figure out what the radius is here and get the frets in, because when you're refretting something on an archtop and you're beating on this, you can put, if you've got a round hole flat top, you can put one of those screw jacks in there and support this, or a piece of wood or something. But I like to do the fretting while it is off. That way we're not beating on this, especially after it's hide glued back on. Something else we're going to look at here is these big cracks that are running right here. To stabilize those cracks, we're probably going to have to cleat them. And there's a couple ways to approach this. I can either come in through the F hole here and do it with magnets, or I can drill a very small hole and do, using a guitar string, pull everything into place correctly. I can give you a link to an episode called 10-String Crack Hack. Crack, yeah, a crack right here, yeah. But the main thing is we got to stop this from going this way, because unlike a Martin, there is no bracing this way. So this will continue to run, and we're going to stop that. So there's a couple ways to do that. Now, the easy way to do this is we're also going to put a pickup on this thing. So if I drop a pickup in by cutting a hole in the top, then I have really good access to right here, and that's an easy way to do it. But we're going to reason that all out in this episode. So I'll quit talking and start experimenting. I experiment so you don't have to. Let's go to the bench. Okay guys, let's start with this area right here. We've got a running crack that's going from here to here. And then this one is, crack is running from here over to about here. If what I think happened is this got flexed one way or another by the neck being pushed one way or another. This happens when things fall against each other. This happens when people trip over a guitar and put their, any number of, we're not here to do failure analysis, but the moral of the story is this crack is not going to stay closed by just putting some hide glue in there or some medium set CA glue and calling it a day. So it's obvious that we're going to have to cleat it. And cleats mean a thin piece of wood with the edges beveled, and we know that the grain, if the crack is running this way, then we would want to put the cleat on where the grain was running the opposite way. So ideally we would have a couple in here that would stop it. Of course, this is radiused. We could take a thicker piece of wood and radius that just a bit and have it fit there. But how are we going to get in there? Well, there's a couple of ways to do this. Archtops cause us to be very ingenious. So This is called the coat hanger. If you know Archtops, it is your best friend. We cut that here, and we cut this here like so. We get this long piece of wire that we can take some type of device like this and bend it over and try to make it circular to one point or another. Okay, like this. Oh, you see that? And we don't want that sticking up. We kind of want that to be flush, so we do this. You see that? Then we have what's called tape, painter's tape. Another, along with dental floss, you're going to need this stuff here. So we're going to take this and we're going to bend that circle like this. You see that? We've got these things called magnets. They do this. We have this thing called another magnet that we tape onto here like this, and we end up with this. You see there's a magnet on there. Now we take a piece of tape, we roll it and pat it and mark it with a B. Okay. See, that's taped on there. Strong magnet. These stick to each other even from a distance. They're called luthier magnets. Or if you're using for something else, they call it some other word, magnet. You roll the tape up. You put it there like that. Then you take one of your cleats that you've made, any one that you've made, and you put a mark on your piece of wire coat hanger so you know what's up and what's not up. Then you put your cleat, the side that you want outwards with the bevel towards here, like so. See that? Then you put hide glue on here. Then you take the other magnet, this big, thick, heavy one, and it's not going to stick here, but you know you want the cleat there somewhere. So you take another piece of tape or two, sticky side here, and you put that right where you want it, like so. Make sure it's flat, right over where you want it. Now, when you have the hide glue on this piece, you stick this in the F hole and you point it anywhere near where you want that magnet to stick, and they will line up. Once it's dry, you simply yank this, and this will not be there, but this will be, right? Or you could do this. You could put this in here like this. I can feel it. It's stuck right there. I can tell. Then once it's dry, you take this magnet off, and because there's no magnet holding this magnet, you'll pull this back and that cleat will mysteriously not be here. Important thing, remember that which way this one is going, which way the grain is running, and have your magnets here. That's one way of doing it. Okay, the next method we could use is to take a very small bit like this, and we can go along the crack. We want to make sure that this is clamped so everything is level and we don't have a gap here, and we can do some drop fill or whatever we need to do to get that stabilized. Remembering where the head block is here, we come in, we drill a hole or two or three right on the crack, 1, 2, 3. Then we take a 10 string, we push it in through the hole, We use our magnetic tool to find it, pull it out of the F-hole. Then we put one of our cleats, after we drill a hole in it, put the end of the 10 string in it, find a way to stabilize it, whether it's a bolt and a nut, kind of like a clamp that you would use on a motorcycle throttle cable, one of those nuts and bolts. Put it through here. Cut your cleat material where it's running diagonal. That will give you a better chance of lining up against the grain. You pull the wire, and then you take one of these made out of a couple pieces of wood and a tuner peg, and you simply wind it through there like so until it's tight, and it will pull the piece of wood which you have put hide glue up against the back side of the cleat. You let it dry, and if you need to, you can differentiate good customers from not so good customers by using very cheap tuning machines or a Grover Imperial stair step. 10 string crack hack episode right up there, right about. Finally, it's getting messy here, but we can decide what our bridge is going to look like, how much of it we need to cut off, what our neck angle is going to be, and how all that lines up. We should know that by now. And we're going to decide, are we going to put a pickup on this by mounting to the side of the fingerboard and neck? Are we going to put a piece of wood here and bolt or screw this onto that piece of wood? Or are we ultimately going to use something like this Gretsch pickup that has a higher profile with these poles here, meaning we cut a hole in the neck or in the body, understanding where the tone braces are or the tone bars are, and that we don't want to cut through those or modify those. But if we go with something like this, then we have a hole in the body right here, and the access becomes very easy, and we can actually see what we're doing. So use this and this to inform those modifications. All right, everything is coming up roses, ain't it? Yeah, I know. Just anyway. So this is what happens when I try to make this a wife-friendly channel. Okay, I tried. All right, we're straight out of Long Beach, brother. Look, we have shimmed up the neck. We've cut it loose, and I have put a little piece of wood in here to get everything where it needs to be. This informs what kind of bridge we can use, which is going to be the original one here, this monstrosity. I found out what it is. I'll tell you later, because I don't want to start you coveting early just before Sunday. Anyway, we're going to pull a little bit off of the bottom and sides of the heel, but before I forget, you want to make sure that when you're doing this, you don't have some neck stand arranged somewhere here or here or something, because it's going to give you a focal point like a teeter-totter, and you don't want that. But we take this metal ruler. I bet you this could have been the official ruler of the Catholic Nuns Association, because this thing is metal and it will put the hurt on you. Anyway, it makes a wonderful straight edge, and if you can see here, it goes right over that and butts right up. Oh, it goes over that one too, but of course this is higher back here. What we're looking for here is to put thumb wheels back on this one and a better brace. I don't want to put a piece of wood here and run screws to it, but there we go. I'm also going to raise the height of the nut, and I am going to refret this. So let's get a couple frets off of here, which means we're going to crack out the Tourist mini iron. Sorry, Granny's iron and hobo hot plate, but the future has arrived. Hey, can this be the scene from, yeah, let's get this set up here. So we got Long Beach. If we play around, this will be the suggestion. Oh yeah, look at that. I want to show you this. When you've got your neck on right and shimmed right, you can tell because it's hard to get off. But anyway, that is the thickness. That is about 2 millimeters or 467,038 if you're using the standard system. Still, like a Cro-Magnon Neanderthal. Anyway, there it is. So we're going to put this out the way. Oh, you didn't see this Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. But let's get this neck over here. And do you hear the celebrity dog in the episode? That's the neighbor's dog. His name is Yappin' S.O.B. We love Yappin' S.O.B., don't we? You got one too, don't you? Anyway, we're going to pull the frets now, which means we need to crack open the Tourist Mini Iron. This thing is so cool that I shouldn't even be showing it to you. Anyway, this slips out like this. This goes in here. And when you can operate the Tourist Mini Iron, it will be time for you to leave, Grasshopper. Okay, while we are waiting for that iron to do its job, I want to show you this cool little box I have here. It clips down like this. It has a handle. I have everything in here that I need to do fret work. I have fret pulling pliers. I have good fret wire cutters. I have things to clean out the fret grooves. I have things to determine what the radius is. I have fret marker side dot material. I have files that make things flat, that do the rough angle on the side. I have fret radiusing gadget. I have, ooh, these are Clean One Owner. This here presses frets in like a vice grips. You see that? I have different coals that go with that match the neck so you don't scuff up your neck like you're using a capo. I have things to protect while I'm polishing the frets. And I have these fancy fret dressers that have no teeth on the side. You can do that with just about anything. These are not for your nails. Go to the manicure shop and leave us alone, won't you? It's time to check the heat now. Okay, I've shown you this before, but take this fret channel tool, and before you do anything, you're going to run that along each side of the fret using the fret wire as a guide. Take your time, especially if it's on a guitar that's not a piece of crap like all the guitars I work on. What you're trying to do is you're trying to score this lightly, because when you pull the fret up, there's going to be some chip out, and if you've scored that, it won't be so bad, hopefully. Now, I've told you this before. This is radius, so when you squeeze it together, it wants to pull the fret up. So we're going to move this over here, and we're just going to get under the fret that's been heated up, and we're going to squeeze it. We don't pull up, we're just going to squeeze. And we're just going to keep doing this, and we're going to walk down the fingerboard like this, and when we get to the end, it's going to come up. Now, in the event that this is difficult, this thing has a slot in the middle. This comes in 20 thousandths and 10 thousandths, and it rides the under portion, the tang, like this. And so if it's difficult, you just put that under there, and it gives you 20 thousandths more of a prying pressure, kind of acting like a lever or lever, depending on where you went to school and how you pronounce it. There we go. And if you look right here, be careful, it might still be hot. But now you're going to want to take something that's got a piece of sandpaper on it and just run it like this. Because if there is some chip out and you leave it there and you don't address it immediately, what will happen is as you go along and forget about it, by the way, there's binding on the side right here that I want to deal with and not knock off. But if you don't get that chip off away later on when you're sanding and leveling and doing all your stuff with your fancy, find out what the radius of the fretboard is so you can bend the new wire, that chips out and it's bad. Anyway, you don't need to see me do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, meaning this was a 19 fretboard. Aren't you glad that you know that now? Okay guys, something I've learned along the way. First off, be careful if there's binding on the side. That's going to become important when you're putting in new frets and dressing things. But if you start here, that's not going to work out as well as if you get on the edge first with about half of your fret plier sticking out and just squeeze that a little bit and come over here and do the same thing. And it will get you started a lot quicker than trying to just bite it in the middle. Like so, see that? So I'm going to come in here just a little bit. All right, that iron worked out pretty good. Remember, once again, start off with about half of your fret pliers showing when you grab the end, and you will find that it will push up the beginning of the fret and a lot easier. We're on the last one here. You know, I've run across fretboards on some older stuff where I have seen fretboards that things were so high down here from never being used that people actually ground the frets down to nothing, where it was just the appearance of a fret in this area, just so there wouldn't be any buzz here. Again, now it's time to go through and make sure that any of the split out gets sanded and addressed before we move on. If I start taking a beam with sandpaper on it and leveling things out, and I go against those, that will break those out. So spend a little detail time here. Okay, I've got some 800 grit sandpaper made in Canada. You know, 3 months ago, this used to cost me about 3 cents, and now it costs me about 3 cents. So that concludes this political statement today. Now, I can just do this right here. Yeah, this is kind of like setting points on a 1968 Ford where you fold a matchbook in half and it's 32 thousandths, and you can sit on top of the motor here. Remember, scoring the frets with a razor knife or a scalpel like this before you pull them is going to save you a lot of grief here. But this fits right down in here, and it cleans up those fret edges and the channel as well. And you literally see it takes no time at all. If you want to use American sandpaper, then you save milliseconds by not having to say A every time you make a statement about the sandpaper, This would be the 19th fret down here. And for our Canadian friends, this would be the 19th fret here, A. Okay, now speaking of Canada A, our friend Ted Woodford up there would suggested that when you're putting in frets that you don't run them one down after the other, because this tang width will push and compress the fretboard, so you skip 1 or 5 or 7 depending on what country you're in and what unit of measurement you're using. But it makes sense to me because I am an arborist, by the way. There we go. Skip 2. Skip 4. I don't know. There we go. Time for the fret wire cutters, and we got a little bit of work to do on this one. Right there where we steamed the neck off. Okay guys, if you got one of these things, they are very handy for seating the frets at the end once you beat them in and stuff. Now, there is a caul here that matches the radius of your fretboard, the way the fret and wire needs to curve, and then there are cushions on the bottom here. There's some adjustment. It takes a while to get used to one of these, especially if the neck gets wider because you're adjusting constantly. But it works like a vice grips. You just get it on there and you squeeze it until it shuts, and then you just squeeze it again and pop this and it will come loose. And again, you will have to adjust this a little bit as the neck gets wider. A number of ways to do the next part. If you have a neck that you're just building from scratch, it doesn't have a finish on it, you can just take this to a belt sander, lay it on its edge, and then radius it over. If you're brave, you can get one of these in which you have a 90-degree angle and then you have the beveled side. So the first thing you do is remember that you have binding here, and that we're going to just take this and put it here, and we're going to run the whole length back and forth until we don't feel anything here. You're going to watch your binding, because if you start getting scratches on that, you could even tape that off. But then once you don't feel anything on the edge that's the sharpest, then you can turn it over and go to the side that's beveled, and it will give you the start of your curl over on the frets. You can't do fine detail with this, but it gets you close. Very handy. Okay, there's quite a bit of fine detail work to do here, but you get the idea. We've got, wherever the steam was, we've got a little bit of fight back here on this fret and the one next to it. So we're going to use some CA medium set glue and get something ready that's got a caul shape on it that matches the radius. We'll drop a little bit of glue down in there and then tighten these up. After we do the fill of this, anytime you sand a fretboard, keep the fine dust, because you'll need it to mix and fill these holes here, which you want to remember where these were and what the angle was. Remember, the angle we needed here was to get down into this part right here. So you just simply measure in off the edge, and you'll find out that the holes actually could have been over here just a tad, and then straight down at an angle this way, and the same way this way. You only learn this by seeing it. When it's Def Leppard, too late. Okay, here we go. Let's catch up. Before I move this stuff, let me tell you what it is. And since I don't have Chick Flick Teal Pointer or Chick Flick Teal Pointer Jr. because I'm in an undisclosed location in Long Beach, California, culture capital of the world, I'm going to use this Avon pencil. You know those old cars that had the stuff in them that made you smell better? You need some, so go get it. Contact your Avon distributor today. Okay, here we go. This is 600 grit wet dry sandpaper. This rag down here is velvet. I have saved it from a dreary life of hanging above someone's couch as an Elvis painting. You are welcome. This is Wypall 80, W-Y-P-A-L-L. A box of these costs more than this guitar is worth at any time in its life. We have 4-aught, old man term 0000. I made it through 3rd grade. 4-aught steel wool. If you're going to use steel wool, you need a magnet because this stuff will leave fibers all over the place and it will pick up the fibers. This magnet right here. Now, the problem we have is that when you use steam, the steam is going to mark up the surface. That's why people use those styrofoam cutters and all that kind of thing. So, a couple things you need to do here. If you've got steam marks, you can take regular paper towels and you can take naphtha. And people are like, it's not naphtha, it's not that, whatever, I own it, you want it, I'll decide. We put naphtha on here. You can't get it in California because my fingernail has to have a cancer warning label. And you're just going to get this stuff off of here. Now, if you're around someone who is allergic to smells, and you're using this is the quickest way to get them out of the room, partners, let me tell you. So, there we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take some water and we're going to take a piece of our wet dry 600 grit sandpaper. We're going to put it in the water. See that? Then we're just going to go around a little bit and start working where the steam marks are. You see that? And there's going to be an association between where the tape was, the masking tape, and sometimes the culprit is actually the adhesive on the bottom of the masking tape. So I think I'm going to get a piece of that plasticky, rubbery stuff that's see-through that you see at the big brand store. So the next time you go into Costco and go into that cold vegetable area and it's missing one of those flappy things, yeah, it wasn't me. So anyway, we're going to get there. Now I'm going to show you some really cool stuff. Stumac sells us some little bottles. It's very expensive. It's called some kind of color stain. This right here is the Kalamazoo color, which is the Gibson color. I have not watered this down, okay? I've shaken the top. I've shaken the bottle so it comes to the top. I'm going to get some of that here. You don't want to spill this anywhere. Now, I want to make some decisions about where the pick wear was before, even though there was a pick guard on this thing. But I'm just going to come along and get some of the spots that appear to be the darkest. You see that? Now remember, I haven't mixed this. This stuff can be mixed with water or it can be mixed with something that makes it spirit-based. I'm going to touch a little bit of it right there. Now, like I said, you want to put this somewhere where it's not going to screw up your life, because if you throw this, if you get this on a rag and that, like a snot rag in your back pocket, and you were to throw that into the washer, you will be hating life. It's like throwing a bag of concrete in someone's swimming pool. It never goes away. I don't know why I said that. I don't know who would do that. Maybe a landscaper that didn't get paid. Why everybody always get paid but me. Hey, Rubber Peyton. I think I'll give you a link to that. But you see that? Now I want you to notice that there was a sunburst on here. It was sprayed. The wood on the top is different from the wood on the back and the sides or spurs. So we're going to take some of this stuff now that's been diluted down. This needs to be labeled. It is. But if your mother-in-law is over and you make her some pancakes, feel free to put this on the table. Her teeth will be brown, but there's 1 tablespoon of this and the rest of it's Everclear, so suddenly she'll either be really easy to get along with or maybe not. That's your gamble. So I've cut down one of these Wipe All 80 rags, and I am going to shake this. And then I'm going to pay attention to where the sunburst is, okay? Like so. And then I'm just going to go along and work this in a circle. Now, because it's mixed with Everclear, it's kind of like French polishing. And so it's going to vapor off very quickly, but when you're touching this up, it's already sticking to itself, like so. And so I can just go along and get rid of all those marks, and it will let enough of the old wood show through. If you don't want any of that, then of course you would use more of the undiluted stuff on this spot here and one over here. Anyway, you just keep it up, and after a while, when it all dries off, you can go over it with your steel wool again, get any high spots knocked down, and then of course you are going to take your naphtha, because it won't touch finish that much, and it wafts off. And believe me, that looks a lot better than it did before. Okay, let's take a look at where these cracks are. I've made a decision about how we are going to approach this. I'm not going to cut a hole in the top, but what I am going to do is I'm going to tape off the area on either side of the crack here. It goes all the way up here. What I've noticed is that when you use really heavy, thick wood like this one is, it will tend to crack if you don't brace it like this every so often. So again, I think the neck got flexed, something didn't give, it cracked here and here, and this is a running crack. So I've taped this off to show the extent of it. Then I've taken a razor blade and some Scotch tape and put it on each side except the middle. You can see that. I'm not going to use this part, but I can do this, see, and I don't get cut. Feel free to try that if you like. But this is as wide as the gap here, and because the masking tape is here and because the tape is on the side, it gives me a little bit of wiggle room here. I haven't done anything to this except take the 600 grit, fold it down as wide as that crack is, and just run it there. So I'm not really going through the finish, what's left of it, but I am getting anything that's sticking up an overlap, like an overbite right there and there, and I've already done that. And then of course I take my steel wool and do the same thing. If you start noticing that the edge of the masking tape is getting worn, that means you're getting dangerously close to the finish. And then of course we're going to take this rag with all this nasty stuff on it. We're going to put some naphtha on it, And we're just going to run it through like that. We'll do both sides. You can't hardly see the crack, which is a good thing. Now, I want you to notice that I have my hide glue over here. It is not heated up. I have hydrated the crystals. This is good stuff out of Europe, and its consistency is like gel right now. Once I heat it up, it will get a very runny. And I've got one of these metal flux brushes that's good to use. I've flattened it out with a hammer to make sure that the hairs are together here and it's easier to hang on to. And it is magnetic, so I can put this upside down in a cup or something like that and have it ready to go. I'm going to turn the hide glue heater on. The hide glue is best at between 140 and 150, so you can put a thermometer in there. At that speed, you have about 2 minutes before it starts to gel up and become non-effective for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some cleats and we're going to make sure that the crack is stopping here, here, and here. In the Avon world, that is here, here, and here. Okay guys, I took a little bathroom break. No, this is the result of using this. Nice try. But the next thing we're going to talk about is cleats. Now, I've made a number of cleats, so you just cut some maple, thin slices, get your bandsaw set up, cut thin with a nice fence, and taper the edges off. You see that? And this part goes to the outside. This part goes the flat part, or sometimes you'll round it depending on how this is right here. If the guitar has a radius, some of the smaller cleats, you can see this is more pronounced. It looks like a little pyramid, but you want to make them as thin as possible. Now we're going to drill a hole in each one of the cleats in the middle, like so. And when you do that, you want to make sure that wherever the drill bit punched in on the inside, that you sand that down, because if you leave it sitting up there, your cleat is not going to sit right. So I've made 3 that are about the same size for this side. So I'm going to go to the middle, roughly, like so, and I'm going to use a very small bit. I'm not paying much attention to the camera angle here. And yeah, the shooting scout wasn't worth a damn on this episode anyway. There we go. Now I have 3, and one's going to sit about here. Of course, this will be backwards. One is going to sit about here. And then, of course, one will sit here. And that's going to stop that crack from running. So, of course, they'll be turned around like this. Now, let me show you a little trick. I called it the 10-string crack hack episode, or right about there, or right about now. And we simply use this gauge to run through a hole that we're going to drill in the guitar right now. I'm estimating, we're going to drill right on the crack, see? Now we didn't want to get too far here because the head block is there. And one right about there. 3. Okay, again, this is a 10-string. You can't hardly see it, which is good, but we're going to take the keeper end is going to stay with us, and we're going to put this inside the guitar, like so. And we are going to fish it out. And how is it that we're going to do that? Well, remember our friend coat hanger with magnet? Oh look, it's moving around. There we go, there's the end. Can you see it? Ah! Okay, well you can tell because it's pulling right there. Do you see that? Okay, now let me show you something really cool. Beveled edge out. Make sure you know which way the string is coming out of the guitar. We're going to put that string through that hole. You see that? Now the tricky part, you can't even see the string, can you? Okay, you can see the wood, but I got a feeling some of you are saying, I can't see the string. Well, a little trick that my grandfather told me about, it wasn't Grandpa Bub, believe me, I think it was the other one, is that if you do something simple, you will be able to see things much better. And the secret lies in these carrots. Now you can offset that with some other kind of behavior that we're going to not talk about because apparently, anyway, never mind about all that, and I'm too lazy to edit it out. Okay, now I want you to see something that is going to put you right in Carpenter's paradise. This is called a cable clamp. It has a hole in it right there, and you put your cable in it, and then you take a screwdriver and you mash this, turn this down until the cable is mashed in there. So we're going to look at the cable and we're going to find out which side is flat and which side has the pyramid. We're going to go on the pyramid side and we're going to put the end of this cable through that hole there. You see that? And then we're going to twist it around and go through it again like so. And then we're going to pull it, and then we are going to use the screwdriver and we're going to mash that cable in there, and what do you know, it will not come out. Now we're going to let, so you know the string is there. We're going to put hide glue on there, and then we're going to pull this cable up into place because this keeper, we've kept this keeper on here. That's really important. But once we get our hide glue on here, we're going to pull this into place like this. You see this? So we got one more thing to tell you about, and it is awesome. Now, I've got one for if your budget is economy, or you're just like one of these big wheels that only works on high instruments and charges exorbitant prices. I got a model for every budget. Okay, here it is. Let the Avon spokesperson lead you into the way. So this is a piece of wood. This is another piece of wood. There is a gap cut in there. Notice there is cork on there. Notice the tuning machine complete with chick-flicked heel screws. This is an economical tuning machine. This has now become a winch. This is pretty much the same thing. It has everything, chick-flicked heel screws, but it's got a Grover Imperial. You can use this one to charge exorbitant prices, and this one is for the economy budget. Now, you'll see why the tape was important. We are going to put this here, like so. The string has that gap to go through. We're going to pull this into place, and we are going to tighten this up, and then we are going to use the tuning peg, the tuning machine, to winch that up into place very tightly. Now, before we start doing our hide glue and stuff, you want to take a look at where this is going to go. It's going to go right there. There's a slight radius. So what we want to do is on the side that's facing the inside of the guitar. We're going to sand down the sides just a little bit. There's Fred. Okay guys, I have a little portable heater here. The hide glue is in here and you can see the viscosity of it. This thing gels up, stuff gels up to almost solid when it's cold. And I have a magnet on the side of this thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, remember, on the flat side, and we're going to put our hide glue in a copious amount right there. Okay, like so. And then we can put our hide glue brush like that. You see how that is? These magnets are awesome. Then I'm just going to fish this through the F-hole where it will fit, and then I've got a flashlight in here and I've got my stick so I can see which way this thing is. And now I can grab on to this part here, and I'm going to cut this like so after I put a piece of tape on it right here and let this pull into spot. We're going to keep this tight for a minute or two, and then we'll winch it in place. Now, if necessary, you can always put a clamp running from here to support that. Bingo. Waiting for hide glue to dry. All right, I've cut and wound up what's left of the 10 string. It's still got the keeper on it, and I've got a piece of this green tape, and it will identify what it is, especially when I flip it out of my hand errantly like I just did. There we go. Now, while we've got the hide glue warmed up, we are going to run a little glue in there like so, and it will run down, and that tape is going to keep it in the right place like so. And then we will put, that has softeners on it, we will put a little bit of pressure on there, not too much. We can see it move just a tad. That is good. Okay, the first thing you want to do is get your pencil or a rod and put a piece of rolled up tape in case you drop your cleat. You can just stick it in and grab it like this. But when you're cleating on the inside, the pyramid structure, like here where it's very pronounced, is not going to help you because everything comes to a point. So you've rolled up a piece of tape and you've put it on your clamp, and then that way it will sit like so. It will sit nice and flat, and then when you put your hide glue on, you simply come through the F-hole back to where you need it to be, and you just tighten it up like this. Another thing we're going to think about here is the way the grain is running on the cleat. So if I know I'm going to be coming in like this and the grain is running one way or the other, I can turn this on the piece of tape like so. And then we're going to go over to the hide glue, and we're just going to put our hide glue on there like so. I hope you can't see what I'm doing. I'm not sure, but I have hide glue on there. Now I am going to come in like so and not want to knock that off there or tilt it too much. And then once I get where I want to be, I'm just going to pull that up like so, and there we go. Get my brush, and the hide glue viscosity is just perfect. It drops in there like lacquer. Now you've seen these people pumping and doing all that kind of thing. I think that we're going to be okay. If there's an offset in this crack, I'm just going to drop some lacquer in there and use my razor blade that's taped off in the middle. But we'll let that sit there, and then we'll put a couple more cleats in when we're done. And now the other zoom out, we can get to this one over here and get our first cleat right there. Another little trick here before we put the cleat in, I can put a little glue in there. You have to work fast, but in order to close this one up and have it become level, this actually needs to come up a little bit. So I can take some binding tape and hook it underneath here like so, and then when I'm getting everything clamped, I can pull this into place here and tighten it up like so, and everything will line up as I'm getting the clamp on. All right, everything's holding together and drying up. This hide glue sets up pretty quickly if you got the right stuff, but we're gonna let it rest overnight. Why not? We've got a couple more cleats to put up here on the top end and one or two more down here, and we will be good to go. So instead of waiting for that to happen, let's think about closing this episode out, because I think you get it. And the thing to get is, how much time and effort have we put into this, and what's it going to be worth at the end? I see you do not covet my double-breasted hide glue heater. You want to know something pretty? The prettiest thing you ever saw regular is when you take one of these finish Archtops, and you know there's cracks, and you put cleats in them, and they actually stay. And what's the prettiest thing, you might ask? Well, I thought this was pretty pretty. I Grover Imperial on there, put it right up here, winch it up. You saw it right here. But then when we went in and cut the wires loose and put our coat hanger thingy with the magnet on it, and that clamp came out with the string, and everything was still in place because I checked it with this fancy flashlight with the three-way action. Look at this one. Have you anything to drink, son? Anyway, cleats are still in there. Everything is good. Now, I want to point out one thing I didn't tell you about. You can see that one of these cracks is totally different. One of these cracks is not the same. You see the one that's at an angle? Guess what? The kerfing is right here. So if you try to pull a cleat in down in this area, it's going to be hitting the kerfing. So you got to put it up in here where the cleat would miss the kerfing. So what do? You got to know how big the cleat is till the hole. You see that hole right there? Yeah, I can see you. Anyway, you take your magic coat hanger, you bend it just a little bit, like so, and then you put a mark on there that you use with your metric ruler, and you stick it in here, and you use your flashlight through the F-hole, see, and then you can set it like this, and you can put it up against the kerfing, and you can measure it, and then that way you take this measurement now with that mark, and you can tell where to place your cleat on this side. It's got to go here. Won't work here. We're going to inject a little glue down in here where that kerfing is, and it'll seal it up. But there we go, guys. I got 2 more cleats to do. Everything turned out just perfect, which makes me a winner. And now I'm going to give a shout out to my friends in Winter, South Dakota, cultural capital of the world. I'll see you with this thing again and again and again.